All right, welcome to Adventures in Discipleship. My Winnie the Pooh mug. Love me some Winnie the Pooh. All right. Welcome to Adventures in Discipleship, and today, welcome to my personal devotion time. Weird, I know, but I'm going to try it because it seems like when I'm reading, I'm kind of half teaching myself. As I read through the Bible, I tend to, I start vocalizing things that I need to pay attention to, and it's like, why don't I share that? Maybe you're interested, maybe you're not. We'll see. Who cares? Anyway, I'm in Chronicles today. That's a book. It's not Corinthians, it's Chronicles. And that's one of the more dreaded passages of the Bible. So I want to set you at ease. I am probably not going to read through the long list of names of so-and-so begot so-and-so, and that goes on for chapters. I've already gotten through some of that, so I won't put you through it. But I just got through some interesting stories of David and the promises that God made to King David. And so we're going to start today, and like I said, I'm just reading through. So I have not pre-read this for the video. I'm just reading it as I would normally do as I go through my Bible. I read it from cover to cover because that's what I like to do. So welcome along. Hopefully you get something out of it. And, well, you will get something out of it because I'm going to be reading the Bible. And if you ignore everything I say, at least you'll get something out of the Bible. So not a total loss. All right, let's get started. We're going to start in 1 Chronicles chapter 20 is where I'm at. So let's go. Let's see what it has to say to us today. Father, hold on. Father, I just pray that you would guide me today, encourage me today, speak to me today, reveal yourself to me today. Father, show me what you want me to see. Help me to not read this to know about you, but help me to read this to know you. So, Father, I just thank you for your word. Thank you for your revelations over the thousands of years to the men of God that have gone before me. And Father, I just pray that you would encourage me and speak truth and life into my heart and into my life today so that I can better serve you and better walk with you. In the name of Jesus, may your name be glorified forever and ever. All right, 1 Chronicles chapter 20. And it happened in the spring of the year, at the time that kings go out to battle, that Joab led out the armed forces and ravaged the country of the people of Ammon, and came and besieged Rabbah. But David stayed at Jerusalem, and Joab defeated Rabbah and overthrew it. All right, already I know where this is going because I'm familiar with the story. So I know where this is headed. That line that it was the time that kings went out to war, but David stayed behind. Yeah, I know where this is going. But David stayed in Jerusalem, and Joab defeated Rabbah and overthrew it. Then David took the king's crown from his head and found it to weigh a talent of gold, and there were precious stones in it, and it was set on David's head. Also he brought out the spoil of the city in great abundance. And he brought out the people who were in it and put them to work with saws and iron picks and with axes. So David did to all the cities of the people of Ammon. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. Now it happened afterward that war broke out at Gezer with the Philistines, at which time Sibbechai the Hushathite killed Sippai, who was one of the sons of the giant, and they were subdued. Again there was war with the Philistines, and Elhanan, All right, so I was thinking it was going to go into the story of Bathsheba, but we're not quite there yet. So apparently David, hold on. So I want to wrap my brain around what's going on here. But David stayed at Jerusalem, and Joab defeated Rabbah and overthrew it. So David sent out his army. So apparently this was a trend, and we see how this kind of bit him in the tail later on, But you start to see here that David was not leading the battles anymore, even back in chapter 20. So he sent his army out, they defeated, and then he shows up afterwards to check out the crown and all the other stuff and put people to work. So he showed up, but after the war. that's interesting. See, I learned something today. So that time with Bathsheba, where it says that the time when kings go out to war and he stayed behind and then he saw her bathing and all that. And I've heard a lot of people preach on that and talk about how he should have been out there in the battle and he should have been at war, because that's when kings go to war. But he wasn't in the war. He was at home in his comfortable palace. So if you back up before that, you see the trend here starting where he doesn't actually go into battle. His army goes to battle, but he doesn't show up until later. So that's very, very interesting. So be careful the patterns you start in life. All right. Where was I? Let's try verse 4. Now it happened afterward that war broke out at Gezer with the Philistines, at which time Sibbechai the Hushathite killed Sippai, who was one of the sons of the giant, and they were subdued. Again, there was war with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, killed Lahmi, the brother of Goliath, the Gittite. Now, you remember David killed Goliath earlier. So this was Goliath's brother, Lahmi. The shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Yet again there was war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, with 24 fingers and toes, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot. And he also was born to the giant. This is birth defects going on there. So he's a huge dude with extra fingers. Reminds me of the Princess Bride. Anyway. All right. See, I have ADD, so I get distracted by little things like that once in a while. So let's keep going. So he's winning all these wars, which is good, I guess. So David defied. So when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, killed him. These were born to the giant in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Now Satan stood up against Israel and moved David to number Israel. That's an interesting line. So the whole motive was instigated by Satan. So the spirit world is real, and we need to understand that. And we don't see it, and we don't always understand what's going on. But 100%, there are things that God does that changes situations and history even, and there are things that Satan does that really messes things up or brings people down or shifts society and culture. There's a lot of stuff going on in the spirit world, and I'll be honest, I don't really understand it all, but I do know that there's stuff going on. I see it in my own life right now. There's things going on. But here it says it very clearly that Satan stood up and against Israel and moved David to number Israel. Does that mean David was possessed? No. But he probably had a thought in his head, and it sounded good to him. Satan can plant thoughts in our heads. He can put thoughts in our mind, and they sound like our thoughts, but they're not godly thoughts, and they don't glorify God, and they don't please God, and it also often takes us down the wrong path. So sometimes we justify our own behaviors, and sometimes Satan will whisper in our ears something, an accusation, sometimes an accusation against someone or an accusation against God, and sometimes it's a subtle if then. Well, if God loved you, then God would have done this or that. And it's an accusation, but it's a very subtle one. But then that thought begins to needle in your head, and the more you think about it, the more you latch onto it. And when you do latch onto it, it starts you down a path that leads you away from God, and that's not good. Be very aware that nothing that you believe, nothing that you think, nothing that you tell yourself or allow yourself to believe, don't allow yourself to believe anything that's going to take you away from God, because that comes from Satan. Anyway, let's back to the story now. So David said to Joab and to the leaders of the people, "Go number Israel from Beersheba to Dan, and bring the number of them to me that I may know it." Now, part of it's pride. Just off the top of my head, that's one of the first things that comes to my mind, is that knowing how big his army was could very well lead to David becoming arrogant. That's one aspect. There's probably many more, But that's the one that comes to my mind right away, because David wants to know how big his army is. So that's probably not a good motive. And Joab answered, "May the Lord make his people 100 times more than they are. But my lord the king, are they not all my lord's servants? Why then does my lord require this thing? Why should he be a cause of guilt in Israel?" So whatever it was about this question, even Joab knew it was off. Even Joab could sense there was something wrong with what David was asking. And he replies with a lot of questions. Why are you doing this? Like, they're all your servants. Why do you need to know how big they are? Why do you need to know how big your army is? It's like Job started asking, it's like, why are you going to bring this guilt on Israel? And that's an interesting line. Why should he be a cause of guilt in Israel? Referring to the king. That tells me that Joab knew that there was something about David's request that was wrong. Now, there were other times where God told him, or one of the other leaders of Israel, God told Moses or whoever to number the people. And so there's lists in here. I've already gone through them much earlier. There were lists of this tribe had this many people that were fit for war and ready to go to battle, and this tribe had this many people, and there's thousands here and thousands there. Each tribe had thousands of people that were of that fighting age and that could go to war. And so there were times when they were supposed to number, but at this point, for some reason, they were not supposed to number the people. Anyway, nevertheless, that's always a scary word. Nevertheless, the king's word prevailed against Joab. Therefore Joab departed and went throughout all Israel and came to Jerusalem. And Joab gave the sum of the number of the people to David. All Israel had 1,100,000 men who drew the sword, and Judah had 470,000 men who drew the sword. But he did not count Levi and Benjamin among them, for the king's word was abominable to Joab. There was something about this command, and I really don't fully understand why it was so abhorrent, but there was something wrong. Joab himself was offended by this command, and he didn't like it. So he left out the Levites that were the priests, the tribe of the priests, and he left out the whole tribe of the Levites, and he left out Benjamin for some reason. All right, so he left out 2 whole tribes. Everybody else in Israel and Judah he counted. And God was displeased with this thing, therefore he struck Israel. So David said to God, so now David's talking to God, "I have sinned greatly because I have done this thing. But now I pray, take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly." Then Yahweh. So anytime that has the word Lord in all capitals, or even God in all capitals, that's his proper name. It's Yahweh or Jehovah, depending on what vowels you put in there and how you want to pronounce it. But it's his proper name. So it's not just referring to God generally. Yahweh is the God of the whole world. And so sometimes I prefer Yahweh over Jehovah, and I have my own silly little reasons for that. Nothing technical or academic, just personal. Anyway, so sometimes when I read, just to let you know, when I come across that, I will read it as Yahweh because it sounds more personal to me, because it helps remind me that this is relational. This is not just some abstract Lord out there. He's Yahweh, and he has a name. And sometimes the way that it translates it into Lord here, it seems to, not in all cases, but there are a few cases where it just it sucks the relationship aspect out of it. Does that make sense? Because it should be referring to him by name. Anyway, again, personal, just my personal take on it. You don't have to agree with me. That's fine. Then Yahweh spoke to Gad, David's seer, saying, "Go and tell David, saying, Thus says Yahweh, I offer you 3 things. Choose one of them for yourself, that I may do it. So Gad came to David and said to him, Thus says Yahweh, choose for yourself either 3 years of famine, or 3 months to be defeated by your foes with the sword of your enemies overtaking you, or else for 3 days the sword of Yahweh, the plague in the land, with the angel of Yahweh destroying throughout all the territory of Israel. That's pretty intense. So 3 years of famine, no rain, means people are going to starve. 3 months of being defeated by their enemies. Again, a lot of people are going to die. Or 3 days of the plague of Yahweh just sweeping through the land. And that sounds terrifying to me. I would prefer one of the first two. But time-wise, let's get it, some people are like, let's get this over with. People are going to die either way. Let's not draw it out. I don't know what the rationale is, but those were his 3 choices. Now, consider what answer I should take back to him who sent me, referring to God. And David said to Gad, I am in great distress. Please let me fall into the hand of Yahweh, for his mercies are very great. But do not let me fall into the hand of man. So Yahweh sent a plague upon Israel, and 70,000 men of Israel fell. And God sent an angel to Jerusalem to destroy it, and he was destroying. Yahweh looked and relented of the disaster. As he was destroying. Let me read that again. And God sent an angel to Jerusalem. All right, that word angel means or an angel or the angel to Jerusalem to destroy it. And he was destroying. Yahweh looked as he was. All right. Let me start that again. And God sent an angel to Jerusalem to destroy it. As he was destroying, Yahweh looked and relented of the disaster and said to the angel who was destroying, It is enough. Now restrain your hand. And the angel of Yahweh stood by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Again, real spiritual war going on here. There are real angels and there are real demons, and the angels are under God's command, and the demons are fighting against God and everything he stands for. Then David lifted his eyes and saw the angel of Yahweh standing between earth and heaven, having in his hand a drawn sword stretched out over Jerusalem. So David and the elders, clothed in sackcloth, fell on their faces. And David said to God, Was it not I who commanded the people to be numbered? I am the one who has sinned and done evil indeed. But these sheep, what have they done? Let your hand, I pray, O Yahweh my God, be against me and my father's house, but not against your people, that they should be plagued. Therefore the angel of Yahweh commanded Gad to say to David that David should go and erect an altar to Yahweh on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. So David went up at the word of Gad, which he had spoken in the name of Yahweh. Now Ornan turned and saw the angel, and his 4 sons who were with him hid themselves, but Ornan continued threshing wheat. So David came to Ornan, and Ornan looked and saw David, and he went out from the threshing floor and bowed before David with his face to the ground. Then David said to Ornan, Grant me this place of this threshing floor, that I may build an altar on it to Yahweh. You shall grant it to me at the full price, that the plague may be withdrawn from the people. But Ornan said to David, Take it to yourself, and let my lord the king do what is good in his eyes. Look, I also give you the oxen for burnt offerings, the threshing implements for wood, and the wheat for the grain offering. I give it all. Then King David said to Ornan, No, but I will surely buy it for the full price, for I will not take what is yours for Yahweh, nor offer burnt offering with that which costs me nothing. So David gave to Ornan 600 shekels of gold by weight for the place. And David built there an altar to Yahweh, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings, and called on Yahweh. And he answered him from heaven by fire on the altar of burnt offering. So Yahweh commanded the angel, and he returned his sword to its sheath. At that time, when David saw that Yahweh had answered him on the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite, he sacrificed there. For the tabernacle of Yahweh and the altar of the burnt offering, which Moses had made in the wilderness, were at that time at the high place in Gibeon. But David could not go before it to inquire of God, for he was afraid of the sword of the angel of Yahweh. Then David said, chapter 22 here, Then David said, This is the house of Yahweh God, and this is the altar of burnt offering for Israel. So David commanded to gather the aliens who were in the land of Israel, and he appointed masons to cut hewn stones to build the house of God. And David prepared iron in abundance for the nails of the doors of the gates and for the joints, and bronze in abundance beyond measure, and cedar trees in abundance for the Sidonians, and those from Tyre brought much cedar wood to David. Now David said, Solomon my son is young and inexperienced, and the house to be built for Yahweh must be exceedingly magnificent, famous and glorious throughout all countries. I will now make preparation for it. So David made abundant preparations before his death. Then he called for his son Solomon and charged him to build a house for Yahweh, God of Israel. And David said to Solomon, My son, as for me, it was in my mind to build a house to the name of Yahweh my God. But the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, You have shed much blood and have made great wars. You shall not build a house for my name, because you have shed much blood on the earth in my sight. Behold, a son shall be born to you, who shall be a man of rest, and I will give him rest from all his enemies all around. His name shall be Solomon. For I will give peace and quietness to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. Now, my son, may Yahweh be with you, and may you prosper and build the house of Yahweh your God, as he has said to you. Only may Yahweh give you wisdom and understanding, and give you charge concerning Israel, that you may keep the law of Yahweh your God. Then you will prosper if you take care to fulfill the statutes and judgments with which Yahweh charged Moses concerning Israel. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear, nor be dismayed. Indeed, I have taken much trouble to prepare for the house of Yahweh 100,000 talents of gold, and 1,000,000 talents of silver, and bronze and iron beyond measure, for it is so abundant. I have prepared timber and stone also, that you may add to them, and you may add to them. Moreover, there are workmen with you in abundance, woodsmen and stone cutters, and all types of skillful men for every kind of work, of gold and silver and bronze and iron. There is no limit. Arise and begin working, and Yahweh be with you. David also commanded all the leaders of Israel to help Solomon his son, saying, Is not Yahweh your God with you? And has he not given you rest on every side? For he has given the inhabitants of the land into my hand, and the land is subdued before Yahweh and before his people. Now set your heart and your soul to seek Yahweh your God. Whew, I love that line. Now set your heart to seek Yahweh your God. Yes, Lord, may I set my heart to seek you always, 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 always. Therefore arise and build the sanctuary of Yahweh God, and bring the ark of the covenant of Yahweh and the holy articles of God into the house that is to be built for the name of Yahweh. I think I'm going to end with that. Set your heart to seek the Lord. Set your heart and your soul. Set your heart and your soul to seek Yahweh your God. And today in this new covenant, you could also say to set your heart and your soul to seek Jesus. Seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. And we have this promise from God that if you seek him with all your heart, you will find him. So if you're out there and you're struggling, he is wanting to be found by you. And the only requirement is that you do so with all your heart. And while that is a simple qualifier, it is not easy, because in seeking him with all your heart, that means you're not seeking him half-heartedly. That means there's no time limit on it. Well, I'm going to try Christianity for a month, and if it doesn't work out, I'll walk away. That's not seeking him with all your heart. Seeking him with all your heart means never giving up. That means pursuing him constantly without end. And it also means coming before him humbly. To come to God, we have to come to him his way. And so that's my prayer for you, that you would come to God, that you would seek the Lord with all your heart and with all your soul. In the name of Jesus, amen.